Pedro, you can switch off your camera so long.
Sound test, 1, 2, 3, sound test.
Loud and clear.
Thank you.
Good morning, colleagues. It looks like we're correct.
Yes, sir, we do have a quorum.
No. Okay, let's start with our meeting. Let me officially open the meeting of the Standing Committee Finance and welcome everybody who's in the platform. Welcome you members of the committee. Welcome, I think Treasury should be in the platform. I'm not sure if Prudential Authority is also in the platform. If they are in the platform, they are welcome. And the Reserve Bank. Welcome the support team of the SCOF, media, everybody.
Recording in progress.
Is warmly welcome. Are there apologies?
Yes, sir, we received an apology from the MEC that he won't be able to attend the meeting because he's got a prior engagement that he needs to attend to.
So, who's representing the Department of Economic Development in the province?
Dr.
We are having a challenge with your network. Is there anybody from the Department of Development?
Dr. Vilakazi will be leading the delegation and also making the presentation. He's the CEO, Itala.
There's Itala as a bank. The question is, do we have officials from the Department of Economic Development in the light that the MEC is not here? No one.
Good morning, Chairperson, to you. I'm sorry just to chip in like that. The HOD indicated that she's also supposed to be with the MEC because I've asked her this morning. And I am joining, but from the IDFC, which is Itala Development Debt Finance Corporation as a group chief executive. But the HOD also indicated that she's got some challenges because she has been given some tasks to do for the MEC because they have quite a number of ministers that are coming down. Thank you, Chair. So
they prioritize ministers and not prioritize parliament. Is that how we do things in South Africa? a Parliament of the Republic of South Africa invites you to come and deal with a very critical issue that affects the lives of people in KwaZulu-Natal and South Africa in general. But we don't get it clear what is it that they are going to do with those ministers. I don't think we should accept, let's not accept the apology. Even though it's not in written form, this is undermining Parliament by the Department of Economic Development. We're dealing with a very critical matter here. And then we get this kind of an apology, which I can't accept as the chairperson of this committee. Okay, let's move to the next item, where we are going to get the briefing by the Itala Bank on its liquidity challenges and or status. Let me indicate, honorable members, that it has come to the attention of Standing Committee Finance that Itala Bank is facing liquidity challenges, encountering regulatory issues leading to the judicial review of the Prudential Authority decisions and so on and so on. Itala derives its existence from the Banks Act and the Financial Sector Regulation Act. These statutes define Itala's legal framework, outlining its mandate, functions, and regulatory oversight. Its aim is to promote economic development in KwaZulu-Natal. I'm not sure if they've broadened the scope. Recently, there are challenges faced by the Itala Bank, which led to the intervention by the Prudential Authority. So when a bank like this is facing challenges, as the Standing Committee Finance, which is responsible for playing oversight on financial institutions in the country, whether they are government-owned or they are privately owned, this committee has got the responsibility to play oversight on any institution. In the past, we had an incident of VBS. The question is, where were we when VBS reached the stage that it has reached, to an extent that it went to be taken over by the Reserve Bank? And I'm not sure whether the license is still there. And many people, more especially old people, who had invested their last cent, never got anything, and most of them ended up dying as a result of depression. So if we've got a very important financial institution like this facing liquidity challenges, and we fold our hands as public representatives, we will be abdicating our responsibility as public representatives responsible for this committee. So we felt that it is important that we invite Itala Bank to come here and report to us as to what is the genesis of this problem. I know they've taken the Prudential Authority to court, that's something else. But what are we dealing with in regard to this liquidity challenge? And our interest is, what is it that is being done? because we don't want to see a worst case scenario of a VBS again, not in our lifetime, more especially when we're still members of this committee. That should never happen. So we'll get a briefing. I'm not sure whether it's the CEO or it's the chairperson of the board who's going to lead us in the briefing, and then we engage with the briefing. From the side of Itala, who's leading the briefing?
Chair, thank you. My hand is up, Chair. I am the chairperson of the board of Itala. My name is Mpumzi Pupuma. The CEO is going to be leading the presentation. And I just wanted to thank you, the committee and yourself, for inviting us so that we can actually present our case and actually update the committee, and you hear it not from the other sources other than ourselves, what is actually happening between Itala SOC Limited and the present situation with the Prudential Authority. I do have a request, Chair, that I don't know how the rules of the committee works, but as you have mentioned in your opening remarks, we are at court with the Prudential Authority and also with the repayment administrator that was appointed by the Prudential Authority. And we would want us to be protected in terms of who is in the committee, and then our presentation that we're going to make to be treated as confidential to the committee. I would then want to hand over to Dr. Vilakazi, who is our CEO, that is going to do the presentation. Thank you, Chair. Over to you, Dr. Vilakazi.
Chair, good day, Chair. Just a bit, Chair, just in terms of the routine, the Chair, our Chair, Mr. Mpumzi Pupuma, is seeking a request whether the committee can consider to have the matter be heard today, but in camera, because obviously of the not the subject care rule, because Parliament can listen to matters under section, I think, Rule 189. But the challenge that we have is that if there is only misconception of our report today, we might have a potential depositors run. So we just wanted guidance from the Chair as to what would be his guidance in that regard.
Okay, my understanding is that we are not going to deal with the court issues, the merits of what is before the court. Is to deal with the state of the bank and what is the bank and the department doing to make sure that the bank becomes more viable. Let's avoid issues that are before court. I think you know them better. We don't have to go into those details. It will be difficult for now to apply for the standing committee and yourself to be in committee. It's quite a long process because media has got lots of interest. Let's talk about issues which are in the public domain, which, I mean, you have got the challenge. And our interest as CEO is the public. The public comes to us, Mr. Mazongani, Mr. So-and-so, who are a member of committee. Don't you think that Itala Bank is going to collapse and we have got our last cent there? What's going to happen? So let's deal with issues that affect the investors the depositors, and put aside issues that have to do with court issues, and let's not go into the merit of the court unnecessarily. And I know you can be able to deal with that, CEO. Let me get Frank. Wait, CEO. Let me get Frank if he's here. Advocate Jenkins, are you here?
He's not in the meeting, sir. He said he won't be available. He won't be available for this meeting.
It's not available.
Yes.
So who can deal with this legal issue before we proceed? Any other take? I saw De Villiers raising his hand. De Villiers, are you a student of law? Dr. Lope, where are you? And your team.
Yes, good morning, Chairperson and members. I've never dealt with an issue like this, Chairperson, before, because they are seeking to have the meeting closed. And I think if you have that request, you have to request from the Chair of Chairs to close the meeting. Otherwise, all meetings of Parliament are supposed to be held in public. So I think the correct way is for Itala not to discuss issues that are sub judice, but just brief the committee generally on the status of the institution. But I think the issues that are in court are also the status of the institution. But I've seen that they've briefed other committees before, like the provincial committee in KZN. So I do not know how they handled that in that briefing. Perhaps you can hear from them what exactly they require. They require the committee to be in camera, and I know that the committee has to request for permission for that. There was one issue where we had that kind of situation regarding a matter which involved intelligence information. So, but ordinarily, meetings of the committee are open to the public. So if we have to put a committee meeting in camera, you have to request that permission from the Chair of Chairs. Thank you, Chair.
No, if I may, Chair, I think we take the guidance. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. Before that, CEO, let me get two officials from Parliament. I see Dr. Chanchis, and then lastly, Advocate Jenkins. De Villiers, do you still want to speak so that I can recognize you? Okay.
Good morning, Chair. I will just thank you for the opportunity. You largely did cover me. I just would like to make it clear that as a parliamentary committee, we do our work in the public record. We do it transparently. That is our responsibility. So I don't think that there's a opportunity, unless there is really sensitive state security issues being dealt with, that we can do a meeting in camera or confidentially. The matters we are dealing with are very, very important, as you said in your introduction, and I do not believe that they should be dealt with in secret. I think we should deal with them transparently and in the public interest. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable De Villiers. Dr. Chankis, then Advocate Jenkins.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, honourable members and colleagues. Sorry, Chair, I just want to clarify a quick point here. Obviously, there are issues that relates to the financial situation of the bank, and I'm sorry, my view won't appear, Chair, please pardon me without my video. I want to clarify that there are financial situation that, when I look at the presentation, it will definitely present some of the financial situation at the bank. I think the concern, obviously, when I listen to Dr. Vilakazi there, is related to the fact that this is a bank, and when you publish some information, the always fear around such issues is people raising concerns, the depositors running to the bank and want to take away their deposit once they start understanding some of the substantive issues within the bank. I think it's less so to do with the sub judice, but more with the financial situation of the bank, which putting some information in public might, in a way, worsen the financial situation of the bank if indeed, people or the depositors realize that there might be some of the risks related to their deposits. So I think that's the main concern. If you put some of the information in public without it being agreed upon, might raise some of the concerns leading to more liquidity going forward. I think that's the point I want to emphasize here. So that is, I doubt it. My understanding is less to do with putting the information in public, but more to do with how to ensure that the process, it doesn't get made worse by subsequent discussion in this regard. I think that's the point to clarify. Thanks so much, Chair.
Thanks, Dr. Jenkins. Advocate Jenkins.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning. My apologies. I'm currently in a Minerals and Energy Committee meeting on legislation. So I was just asked to give my input here, Chairperson, and I can just refer to the Constitution, which is the most important part of this, Chair. And the Constitution requires that, as a rule, the committee meetings are open, and that they are only closed in certain circumstances, Chairperson. I refer to Section 59 of the Constitution. So it says that the National Assembly may exclude members of the public and the media if it's reasonable and justifiable to do so in an open and democratic society. So that is the test, Chairperson. So the reasons for it, some of them are set out in the rules, which basically turns around confidentiality that is set out in legislation, like when we're dealing with matters concerning the intelligence services and so forth. I remember also certain police actions and so forth. So, Chair, the test is that if the procedure, Chair, to find out whether we meet the test, much like my colleague, and I'll just add something to that, to what Dr. Flope has said, the committee may, and through the Chairperson, through you, Chair, may decide to close the meeting just to look at some of the information and to from there decide whether the meeting should be held in camera or not. So that's a decision-making process. If after that decision-making process, and what I envisage there, Chair, is just for the submission to be placed before the committee that is closed, to look at it, and for the committee then to decide whether the full meeting should be closed or whether only part of it or none of it should be closed. The issue of the Chairperson of committees, Mr. Frolik, usually the procedure, if we decide or if there's a suspicion or a chance that we want to close the meeting, we usually inform the Chairperson of committees, Mr. Frolik, of that. In this case, of course, it's not really possible, but it will have to happen after the fact, Chair. And of course, the reasons should be set out. Chair, if I may, from previous experience, a lot of the times that committee meetings get closed and the public and media gets excluded, some of these have been challenged in court, and it's very important, therefore, that if we decide to close the meeting, that we record the reasons carefully so that we can try and justify that should there be any litigation challenge after that, Chairperson. Chair, just lastly, the issue of the issue of commercially sensitive information as a practice has not been used to close the meeting, but certainly repercussions from that should be considered if it has a national impact. And we can think of some of the South African Airways issues that we have had through the years. Chair, I'm going to leave it there, and I'm here to take further questions if need be. Thank you.
Thanks, Advocate Jenkins, for that clarity. I see Dr. George has raised his hand, and Honorable Mine. Dr. George.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm fundamentally opposed to closing meetings unless there is an issue, for example, like national security or something extremely sensitive. By having this very conversation is making people concerned, I am sure, because we are talking about a bank, and we know what happens when there is possibilities of something terrible happening to a bank, etc. So I can't see how things can be hidden from anybody. So obviously we don't know a thing about what is going on. It's possibly very dire, most probably is very dire based on other facilities, or other experiences of some institutions. So I have no doubt it is very bad, but I have a fundamental opposition to closing a meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. George. Honorable Mani, and lastly, Honorable Abraham.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I want to endorse your rejection of the apology of the MEC that is being verbally articulated without anything written. I think it's really a serious disrespect of this institution of Parliament. So that's the first point. But secondly, Chair, we've now wasted a good 25 minutes on the technicalities of what we're discussing now, which we should have long started the meeting. And this notion about things being in court, I don't understand why is that a problem, because when you go to court, immediately you submit things in court, they become public in any way. So what exactly is this thing that is in court and therefore can't talk about and so on, yet the papers are in court, and if they're in court, they're public in any event. So I want to align myself with the strong objection of Honorable George, and also say as the EFF, we are saying this meeting must continue. We want to hear what are the problems of Itala Bank. We can't have a situation where, in fact, the fact that the MEC is not here, it actually is a symptom of how the leadership, political leadership in that region is not taking this matter seriously. So it's really a big problem. So Parliament is the last wall of defense. And if Itala Bank is here to table its issues in Parliament, we can't close the door and do all kinds of funny technicalities. So the meeting must continue, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Honorable Mine. Honorable Abraham, I think you are the last.
Yes, Chair. Yes, Chair. Thank you so much, and greetings to all members, officials, and everybody in the meeting. Chair, I do not think we are the ones who are in the process of barring the members of Itala, board or bank to make a representation here. In fact, on the contrary, the meeting here is convened exactly for that reason, that the committee be briefed, that the public be briefed in the process. But the person who is supposed to do the presentation is the one who is throwing in a problem that we need to take care of. And Chair, I don't think we need to just use our subjective views, for lack of a better word, of course, sorry, on this matter. We sought legal opinion for a reason, Chair. So I think in terms of the legal opinion given, we have a choice whether we first, just for a few minutes, so that Itala gives us the agenda, the contents of what they are going to be presenting to us. And then thereafter, we find that no, these items are not going to affect the confidentiality that has to do with the sub judice nature of the problem that we are facing here. Then we come back with the items that we have both agreed that are fine, we can talk about. That's the first, I think, legal advice that we're given. The second one, Chair, is the advice that says the chairperson, Honorable Frolic, has to give a go-ahead for us to have that closed meeting. Otherwise, if not, then we have proper backing to ensure that the meeting goes ahead because we have followed the necessary processes. One is also skeptical of the absence of some of the critical players in the province from this meeting. It makes you suspicious, but I just wanted, Chair, for us to consider the legal advice that has been put before us so that when we go ahead with the meeting, our backs are covered. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Sarupan, do you still want to say something? I saw your hand.
Yes, Chair. Just want to comment on the if there's matters pending before the courts and the sub judice rule that in 2007 the Supreme Court of Appeal severely limited and constrained the sub judice rule to say that just presuming or having subjective opinions around whether a matter could be prejudicial isn't enough. You've got to prove harm for the sub judice rule to apply. So I do think that based on what the Supreme Court appeal did in 2007 to limit the sub judice rule, it must not be allowed to be abused to hinder the committee's work. Thank you very much.
Okay. Let's proceed, Dr. Vilakazi and Chairperson. Probably with an understanding that if there is information that can press a button to the market, to the depositors, let's deal with it in a manner that is sensitive. Because this is a public meeting and there's a lot of interest on this meeting. So we don't want information that the bank is going to close in a week's time. We'll be reckless if we can say that. It's a very big bank, and any statement that will send shivers down the spines of the investors and people who are banking with Itala is going to collapse the bank. So it should not be that out of this meeting we get statements out there in the public domain that the standing committee was briefed that the bank will stop functioning in a month or two. So in the main, let's deal with the challenges and how you are navigating those challenges. That's our main interest.
Thank you so much, Chair, and I also must appreciate all the honorable members of this committee. I think that guidance was quite important for us. Chair, we are going to do a presentation. I obviously I try to share it on my side, but it said only the person who's controlling the meeting can share. So I've asked for help from some of my colleagues if they can just flight the presentation on my behalf. My company secretary is Nomsa, if you are able to do that.
Alan Tebuko Bzuti, you can share the screen. Buhle?
Yes, Chair, it looks like we can't share it from our side. You can only run it from your end. There is a text that we shared. Yes, correctly. That's the one there. If Chair, if we could be helped, myself, I didn't steal a lot of carrots, so I'm challenged with my eyes. If they could just put it on the full screen mode, I would appreciate that, Chair. Thank you. The presentation we are presenting, obviously, to the Standing Committee on Finance today as of the 20th of February 2024. My name is Dr. Thulani Vilakazi. I'm the CEO of Itala Soap Limited since the 1st of September 2020. The presentation starts with a context that deals with some of the matters, Chair, that might have been communicated in the public domain, in our view, in a manner that is not correct. We first want to affirm here, Chair, that Itala SOC Limited is a financial sound organization. Our liquidity and our financial soundness has always been very strong. If you look at the key matrices of measuring a bank, there's only two items, indices that I challenge is a profit and loss index and the cost to income ratio. But when you look at the matrices such as the capital adequacy ratio, we're supposed to be above the norm of 15%. Itala has been averaging a norm of about 18.4% as of November, 17% as of November 2023. Which is well above the requirement of the capital adequacy ratio. So that tells you that Itala has no liquidity problem in terms of that aspect. And then you look at the leverage coverage ratio, we're supposed to be above 5%. Itala has on average, since my tenure over the last 3 years and before, giving us double that amount, that figure at about 10-11%, as you can see across the very continuum. In terms of the liquid assets, what assets do we hold that we can realize as a banking institution? It is also clear that we have to be above the norm of greater than 7.5%. On average, we also deliver about 10.7%, 11%, and you can see over the last 5 years that Itala is quite sound. Another key ratio that is very important is obviously the JAWS ratio. The ratio measures whether our operating expenditure, is it running ahead of the revenue that we make? If then that figure is negative, that means then there was a challenge with that particular aspect. In general, as you can see, way back in 2019, and you come across the years, except in 2021, where there was obviously a challenge with the COVID impact, Itala is generally having a positive ratio, which means its expenditure does not grow ahead of its revenue. The cost to income ratio has always been a challenge. When I took over on the 1st of September 2020, I inherited a cost to income ratio of 129%. And when we examined it, we found out that the operating model that for many years had been applied, because this was an entity that was part and parcel of Itala Development Finance Corporation. And when it was hived off, it had a lot of manual processes and also a lot of people in the back office that are not client-facing. As we speak now, we have been able to nudge from 129% when I took over to about 108. Our target is that by 2025, 2026, we should be within the double-digit figures of that aspect. Itala is performing a very credible portfolio. We're supposed to be less than 8%, as you can see there. We're hitting our number in terms of our impaired loans and advances to below that norm of 8%, which tells you about 92% of our book is performing. Then another key ratio in terms of the prudential requirements is the net stable funding ratio, which looks at funding over the 12 months in terms of its availability. All banks or banking institutions needs to be above 100%. Itala has been on average floating at about 145% plus. As of November this year, we're sitting at 149%. Then also in terms of the audit opinion, over the last periods, over the last 5 periods, we have received unqualified audit opinion, obviously with certain findings. Some of those findings we've dealt with them and they've been reported in the public domain. So in a nutshell, Chair, when it comes to our financial soundness, Itala's liquidity and financial soundness is very strong. For over 20 years since the corporatization of Itala, we have been able to meet the depositors' demands. And one of the key aspects, Itala has never ever dipped into the depositors' funds to cover its losses. We have always been getting funding, albeit not, in our view, adequate from our shareholder to actually deal with the capital funding side. We are part of IDFC, Itala Development Finance Corporation, which itself is a profitable entity and a very liquid entity with property assets of 4 billion under management. And our parent entity, as we speak, does not rely on government funding, on government for funding. So in a nutshell, Chair, this first aspect of our slides deals with the aspect that Itala does not have a liquidity problem. The problem that we are facing is that we were operating under the exemption notice, which lapsed on the 15th of December. And we had made overtures to the Prudential Authority to seek an extension in September. We also applied for our our authorization of application section 12, which in our view, obviously I can't argue here, that application was not considered, but was more looked on a technicality. So that's the aspect. Now, in terms of our history, in terms of where we are, we actually put up a strategy in terms of a strategy recovery program that looks at these 3 RRRs, the period of 2023, and even previously, we were dealing more about making sure that we rebuild the foundations of this institution. And then we're also putting up capabilities for operational resilience and innovation, and then take our model further in the outer years. What is important about our key strategic objectives that we have? Strategic objective number 1 was obviously to secure banking license and also deal with the issue of being designated as a clearing participant in the national payment system, because currently we are largely dependent on an ABSA sponsorship, which itself has come to the end because of ABSA's view in terms of not continuing with that sponsorship. And then all the other elements, objective 2, we have implemented, we continue to implement a new operating model. We are stemming out the losses. There's been a period in 2015 and 2016 where we've been able to achieve some sustained losses. However, because the business of banking has quite become expensive, particularly around the regulatory projects that have major capital expenditure, we do need a lot of uplift when it comes to capital that is actually put into the business. We also, obviously, risk is quite important. We also have to run the bank and remodel our IT capabilities because of where we come from, where we needed then to modernize the system. Our people, we've made a huge investment, our people over the last 3 years, attracting bankers that have come into our business, and also make sure even at the level that we are covered in that space. One of the things, Chair, that is always maybe important for us is also just to clarify who we are, because we think even in the public domain, there is also interchangeably the use of the name Itala Bank. So historically, the evolution of the 2 entities, Itala Soc Limited, which is a subsidiary of Itala Development Finance, starts in the old days of the Bantu Investment Corporation, which then evolves under the KwaZulu-Natal government of the time pre-1994 to KTC. It evolves to KFC, and then gradually becomes Itala Development Finance Corporation. At this point in time, we are after 1994. After 1994, the ministers at the time then advised that Itala needed to be separated from Itala Development Finance Corporation because it was deposit taking, and have Itala SOC Limited as an independent entity as an independent subsidiary under the PFMA Schedule 3 of IDFC. So we are here today talking about Ithala SOC Limited. Regulatory, we are not a bank, and we don't refer to ourselves as a bank, but obviously the market calls us that because we operated until the 15th of December 2023 under the exemption notice, which is an instrument which was started around 1998 to assist Itala to participate in the main scheme of things. So there is a distinction between the IDFC, which is the development side, where they do a number of things, property management, development, dealing with SMMEs. On our side as an entity, we deal mainly with a number of banking opportunities that we create for our people. This is our overview. As we have said, we obviously a licensed financial service and registered credit provider. We do have an FSP license. We are 100% owned subsidiary of Itala Development Finance Corporation, as I've explained. IDFC is listed as a public entity in terms of Schedule 3 of the PFMA. We find our existence as Itala SOC Limited through the enactment of Itala Development Finance Act of 2013, which is the act that then sets out the mandates that is given to Itala in terms of financial inclusion. This split emerged around the splitting of these activities emerged around 2001, and therefore since that time, Itala has been operating under the Exemption Notice Act of 1990, the Banks Act. We have been operating under that exemption, which was issued by the minister. This is the chair and the members are aware before the Twin Peaks regulation was split in terms of Financial Sector Authority and the Prudential Authority. For quite some time, the minister issued an exemption notice, because if you look into the Banks Act of South Africa, there is no provision for institutions such as Itala in terms of it being actually cast as to where it belongs in terms of its enactment. We have a very compliant board of directors and executives that over the years, over the last couple of years, we have brought on board with a measurable experience and actually have cut their teeth in banking. Our mandate is obviously financial products and services to individuals in KwaZulu-Natal, but it doesn't mean Itala is really only doing KwaZulu-Natal business, because we do have a number of clients as far as Gauteng, particularly tax associations. We have about 15 tax associations who are able to finance them in a very different way. That's our vision share, to be able to be a provider of choice for our people. We do say that our people also have to talk about wealth, because it is wealth to save. It is wealth to also accumulate assets and so on. We do this in a very different way, very different from the commercial banking institutions, because our solutions are customized and we are responsive and sensitive to the needs. And you'll see when we share our aspects. We are operating in the 4 quadrants of banking: transactional banking, which is transacting. We offer insurance, lending or loans, savings and investments. I think also, Chair, what is quite important in dealing with the question that is before this committee, if you look at our portfolio on the whole is a highly secured portfolio. So we are not an institution that ventures into personal loans. We don't have unsecured lending. So if you look at our portfolio on the granting side, we have a 100% retail portfolio. We have about the number of credit clients in that portfolio. Portfolio size, obviously, it fluctuates. At this point in time of reporting, it was sitting at 2.3 billion. Our portfolio is 99% secured. So we run a very credible book and a very credible portfolio. We offer home loans, And the distinction of our home loans, yes, we do have the normal home loans that is in the urban areas. But one of the unique products that we have is a rural home loan, where we have been able to take the permission to occupy instrument in traditional trust areas under Amakosi and collateralize that in such a way that we're able to lend to those people. And you will see if you come to KwaZulu-Natal, Chair, and I know you have been around in KwaZulu-Natal, you will see that even in rural areas now, you're beginning to see some economic nodes where people are building very nice structures at home. Some of them, yes, they've used personal loans, but the majority of them are approaching us. We have a very nice product called pension-backed loans, which also meets the requirements of National Treasury in terms of its expectations, where we're saying you don't need to wait to be 75 before you actually enjoy the benefits of your pension. It doesn't mean we withdraw the pension, but it actually backs up and is mainly dedicated to renovating and building an asset that can actually appreciate. The taxi finance is a very quite unique solution that we provide. We do not finance taxi owners individually. We deal with the taxi associations, similar to the Grameen bank model in India, where we look at an association to come forward, pull up their funds, put up a collateral, and then hold the members in that tax association, 15 or 20 members, accountable to actually manage their affairs, and at the end of the month be able to service the exposure that they have. We do also have vehicle asset finance. We have a very strong collection culture because most of our deductions are payroll deductions, which means we deduct at source 80% of our portfolio. We also have very positive and consistent roles from stage 2 to stage 3 in terms of actually making sure that we don't get bad in terms of our staff. This is really to our people who over the years have become a very seasoned team that have experience in various areas of complexity in banking. If you look at our portfolio, the credit loss ratio is under 1%. The expected credit loss ratio is under 5%, and the NPL ratio less than 10%. This is obviously at October 2023. We do obviously also have models that we have put in place to make sure that we have a very superb and very optimal operating platform, especially having installed IFRS 9 as a model that is actually collaborated with PwC. This is the deposit book. Our deposit book, Chair and the members, is quite also a unique deposit book. Itala plays a very major role, as we know that there is a challenge nationally, and the parliament members here have dealt with these issues many a time, where the GDP savings ratio is relatively low in the country. Or if you look in terms of where we stand at the moment, as of November, we stood at about 2.8 billion worth of deposits. Now, these deposits are coming from our ordinary people. You have a business, you have clubs, you have cooperatives, you have people who are saving for a purpose, who are not just consumption, credit consumption. We also offer a number of transactional services and so on. What is amazing about this, which we'll see later on, we will see even the impact of an old style booking that we've kept, traditional classical booking, where our people from ordinary villages in Dumo, in Bazwana, in Itopo, all the Gogos still have their passbook savings. That passbooks alone saving is carrying about 411 million, which tells you that we have people out there, whereas they might not be so greatly financial literate, which we try and assist and actually impact on them, but they understand the aspect of actually saving for a purpose. Now, this book does fluctuate because, as you know, Chair, around November, December, January, that's when most of the cooperatives and the stokvel come back to the bank to withdraw their savings, which they've been saving for almost 12 months. Normally, we do have a business cycle of an outflow of about 400 million at that point in time. So as we speak at the moment, you'll see that our book is hovering around 2.4 and 2.5, 2.3, 2.4 billion. But as the year nudges forward around April, we'll then see the book returning strongly to about 2.9 billion. So the question, obviously, the committee chair and your members is, if then liquidity is the problem, what is really the problem? So the problem is that, Chair, if we explain it in a nutshell without delving into issues that we've obviously discussed at the start of this meeting, Itala for considerable time has been existing through the exemption notice. Now, this exemption notice was issued by the ministers. Now, this is before 2018, when Section 12 of the Banks Act was actually enacted and actually made law. Our exemption currently that we had started on the 22nd of July to the 15th of December, which is about a period of 18 months. That period alone, because again, what we need to emphasize, Itala Soc Limited serves both under the Banks Act as well as the Public Finance Management Act because of our parent. So when we have to get into processes of actually trying to get, for instance, investors into our business, we have also to follow the PFMA, especially Section 54, which members are familiar with, where if we have the group that has taken a decision to dispose some of the potential assets, that is a public asset, and that asset must not be unfavorably given to some private party. It must be open, it must be transparent, due processes must be followed. So we have always argued since my tenure that we needed considerable time, pragmatic time, reasonable time for us to bring all these matters into fruition. The current status where we have obviously, which is now in the public domain, the appointment of a repayments administrator. The intent when we engage with our prudential authority was not to appoint a repayments administrator in a classical way, because when the exemption expired on the 15th, the Reserve Bank argued that there was no other instrument. So they wanted to use a section in the Banks Act to repurpose the role of that particular person. So as we speak currently, although I can't delve too much into it, there are two court orders that are in conflict, which are now before the court. One court order says, we are consenting, you are here to watch us managing our business and safeguarding the deposits. But on the other side, there's another court order where it almost goes full steam around Section 83 and Section 84, which then purports. Now, the argument is that Itala is not a Ponzi scheme. Itala, up until the 15th of December 2023, has not operated unlawfully. We have not collected deposits from the public domain unlawfully. We have not done any illicit activities that would purport the appointment of a classical repayment administrator. What was being tried to be done was to find a role player in the act that could oversee, because one option that is open, Chair, is that the Minister of Finance under Section 2 of the Banks Act could provide an exemption to give space for Itala to handle all these issues around its restructuring, which is mainly the main issues now, other than the other issues that we have dealt with very thoroughly, and we continue to do so in terms of the current process. Yes. So without repeating, Chair, I've already said it in terms of our financial inclusion. The uniqueness of Itala, we know that in 2021, when I just assumed in April, we still had the effects of COVID. We also had the floods in KwaZulu-Natal. We also had, in fact, triple floods. We call it the triple floods disaster, and also the social unrest. One of the things that is very unique about Itala is that during that period, we actually saw the resilience of our book. very few of our people came back and actually withdraw their funds to the base that they would not be having anything during the COVID period. We also ran a number of programs, including having 100 million relief program for SMMEs, which was actually well performing, and most of those SMMEs were able to survive and actually pay back what we had borrowed to them. We offer a big not a sizable network, obviously about 38 points of representation in most rural areas. Our model lends itself to be very coast driven, because if you talk about a place such as Ndumo, I'm aware that if you look for the next town would be Jozini, which is 65 kilometers. So if we have a gogo that is getting her social pension, or someone getting the grant, which is really greatly needed and a very key instrument to deal with poverty in this country, those people have to spend about 60 rand taking a taxi to and fro, which means Itala's presence in that area makes it very easy for them to be able to then save and have a local economy that is actually functioning. We do have a network of ATMs and also internet banking, as well as operating the contact center and self-service devices that you now find in spaza shops. And these spaza shops or trade entrepreneurs, I prefer to call them that, trade entrepreneurs, they actually use that as part of the financial ecosystem to trade with each other, thus dealing with the rural and the township economy. Just in a nutshell, if we then split deep, just a bit of a deep dive in terms of why we're talking about this financial inclusion, mainly women, very strong, cooperatives, stokvels, community groups. We have about 27,475 stokvel accounts that have a total value of 290 million. We also have cooperative accounts. Chair, as you are aware, that our national government, as well as all the entities, the spheres of government, have been promoting the use of cooperatives. We have actually been instrumental in promoting 1,417 cooperatives in various sectors with a total value of 16.5 million, which then shows you in terms of the impact that we do. We have 38 physical branches throughout some of the key areas in most of the districts where the province has. The number of accounts, obviously, when we talk about the clients vis-a-vis the accounts that we hold, so the number of client information files, we're talking about 398. So we're hovering around that particular space. It's not a great number that we're looking at, because obviously we have actually, over the last 2 years, actually had a deep dive into the market as to there's a potential 7 million people. And currently we're sitting at that base, but there are some constraints that I'll talk to later on when I specifically speaks about the ABSA sponsorship. We are in most areas like in Gwavuma, Ndumo, Bulwa, this Ezingoleni. I know that in South Africa people say Ezingoleni, but the right name for that area is Ezingoleni. That's where our forefathers used to have the cattle tracks being put there. Those areas we are the only institution, and there are quite a few other institutions. Taxi associations, 10 of them. Currently, we also have about a balance of 35 million, which is highly performing. I've already mentioned the book savings product. Those who started banking in the 80s, I see Honorable Mani is here. You know how we started saving using those book-back savings in other banks, such as Permanent Bank. So we still have that very great product that's sitting at about 412 million with 40,233 active accounts. And the Gokos chair have actually told me several times that I must not do anything to modernize that book. They love it, and they tell me on radio that I must not touch it, because it helps them a lot in terms of being disciplined about saving. We have a very loyal customer base. In fact, we're known as e-bank Iletu, and that's how they actually demonstrate that affinity. To an extent, Chair, if I may show some history, in Botswana, there was an attempt to actually ransack the bank by the thugs. The whole community and members of the community chased the would-be thieves and took the money and brought it back to the bank and handed the thieves to the police. That's the level of affinity that we have with our clients. This is the network. So if you look at the branches, points of representation, over-the-counter services, there's 38 branches. And as you can see there, if you look at the KwaZulu-Natal map, we're seeing towards the Lesotho and the southern side in terms of our presence. So you talk about Lusikisiki and all those areas there at the back, and then a bit of that. So there is a program that we've put in place to make sure that we penetrate these areas and also use, obviously, other ways of expansion. The north, yes, we are close also to the border in Swaziland, and then you can see the gaps between what is in Swaziland and as you come down towards Richards Bay and the areas in Mpangeni and so on. When we talk about costs, cash in transit, we actually are in areas where even in some instances the cash ecosystem is not present. So our model lends itself that it is a bit cost because we have to save areas where no one wants to go, and we get there. On the issues of governance, which I think are quite important, Chair, to raise, we have a very fit and a proper board of directors and executive team, which I've already alluded to. We did not start here. Obviously, over the last 5 years, there's been a gradual investment into this area. We have also, as I said earlier on, we are governed by the Banks Act as well as the PFMA. Our chair is Mr. Mpumzi Mpupuma, who I've had the honor to serve with in the early 80s when we started in banking, and we parted ways, 40 years experience in banking. We comply with a number of regulations, especially Regulation 4.1, which means we do have a CEO and a CFO who are serving on the board. We have established committees that fulfill particular responsibilities with clear terms of reference. These committees also have members who are quite experienced and representing a very broad field. We also have a team that's made up of all of these roles. The current role that is not fulfilled because there was a resignation last year is the role of the Chief Risk Officer. But one of the challenges that we've had is that for quite some time when we engage in filling these positions, we do not get that quick turnaround in terms of the process at the PA, but we have been engaging with them to actually improve that process for us. Normally, you should get approval within 30 days, but sometimes we go as far as 3 months or close to 4 months, which then does challenge us because there's a war for talent, as you know, and there's very
Tebogo, is it me who has a problem with the connectivity, or is Dr. Vilakazi?
I think it's Dr. Vilakazi.
Dela, where are you? Are you in Kwamhla Walingani? Mtombeni, MEC, I see you have joined the meeting. Can you show your face? Well, you are warmly welcome to me. Mr. Chairperson, what do we do now? What the Pumzi?
I'm here, Chair, and probably Dr. Vilakazi maybe have just lost the network. He's going to come back, and I am in your capable hands for guidance.
Who amongst the executive directors can take us forward, go through the slides? I think we didn't prepare this alone.
Yes, there is the CFO. Mohammed, are you here?
Good morning, Honorable Chair. Good morning, Chair. Yes, I am here.
Can you take over and continue? When Dr. Vilakazi is back, he'll take over.
Okay.
And
Noted.
if you need assistance, I'm here, and also the board members are here.
Will do. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Puma. Yeah, so I think Dr. Vilakazi has covered most of the presentation. So in terms of, I think as he touched on, Itala has been operating as a under the exemption notice since its incorporation in 2001 or its separation from the Itala Development Finance Corporation. This exemption did expire on the 15th of December, and the PA has denied granting an extension to that exemption. Itala on 2 occasions did apply to establish a bank under Section 12 of the Banks Act. The first application was in 2016, which was denied because Itala had insufficient capital, and also indicated that they lacked the banking skills and systems. Itala has been building since then from 2016 in order to push itself to this into a position where it can apply and close the gaps that were identified by the PA in 2016. Again, in June 2023, Itala, based on the when the last exemption was issued on the 22nd of July, it had certain conditions on them. One of the conditions was that Itala needs to apply for a banking license and get authorization by June 2023. Itala did then submit a banking license application in June 23 in terms of Section 12. And that application was not processed or assessed by the PA. And was denied more on technical terms because they've indicated that we did not apply sufficiently in time for them to assess it and authorize Itala as in terms of Section 12 by June 2023. So without the exemption nor the banking license, Itala basically has no instruments to continue to function or to operate as a bank. Hence the situation that we are in currently, and it's got nothing, as Dr. Vilakazi has indicated, in terms of any liquidity or financial soundness of Itala. So Itala at the moment, without this instrument, has no ability to continue and has to function currently under the repayments administrator that has been appointed by the PA. And then currently, I mean, because of that, we won't be able to fulfill our mandate, which is basically serving the previously historical disadvantaged community and the people. Itala has, as I indicated, has made significant strides from the 2016 application that was put into 2023. We have upskilled the business. We have brought in very skilled bankers in the various different fields within the bank, and we have been building towards this. I think one in terms of the capital, which was raised as an issue in 2016, that a bank requires significant capital in order to continue its operations. We have been receiving this annual grant income from the local government. However, that hasn't been sufficient, and we are looking at other means in order to build the bank and raise the necessary capital that is required to run the bank. So as an interim solution, Itala has proposed a alliance with a licensed bank which will host basically Itala's deposit taking activities for a period of maybe 3 to 5 years, and then we would while they're hosting that, we will then put ourselves or try and regularize ourselves to become a licensed commercial bank. But however, to note that the alliance options present a risk that when you're sitting in the alliance, there might be that risk that the alliance will control the deposit book and will indicate or will want to see maybe profitability in those. And the major reason why Itala is not profitable is that we are serving these communities in these far-flung areas. And just to service those communities, just like, for instance, the cash in transit cost to service those branches is quite considerable comparing to others. And that's why you do not see the other major commercial banks in the areas that we're currently in. And so the risk by us entering into an alliance is that they might not see the feasibility of us having these branches in these rural areas. And then therefore Itala won't be able to fulfill its mandate.
Chair, my apologies. I know the CFO is taking on. I'm just saying I'm back, although I'm challenged in terms of the video. So I've come off in terms of the video. But I don't see the sharing of the presentation as it was happening on the screen I'm now using. I don't know, the Chair, I can continue. And
network.
yes, yes. I don't know, just in terms of the queue as to my CFO was at which point, because I've lost about 5 minutes. I was on the branch network. Through you, Chair, Mohammed, if you can just cue me as to which part of the slides were you in?
Sorry, if you can just scroll to the previous slide, the presenter, please. So we covered the exemption. Yeah,
slide
so we covered.
15.
Correct.
Okay,
so, which is exemption notice and the banking license. So I've taken the committee through the exemptions, and the next slide is the national payment system and the sponsorship.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair. So may I then cover the sponsorship element? The CFO has just touched on that point that we do have a challenge on profitability. Now, we actually do appreciate that for quite some time, since around 1998, we learned that our partners, Absa Commercial Bank, has actually been very helpful, in fact, up to today, in terms of engaging us and assisting us to actually participate into the national payment system. As you are aware, Chair, way back in 2002, the national payment system was remodeled and revised to be able for non-banking financial institutions to take place. However, the scheme, and we engaged with Absa quite extensively, the scheme that we're on only gave us some limited capability. We were only doing what is called normally ATM transactions, and then debit card payment instructions, as well as electronic funds transfer. Now, if you look at that capability has some shortcomings. The capability that is required, because we have clients who have needs, similar needs to any other client in the world. We do need real-time payment clearance, which we currently don't have in the current system. We also needed the capability to be able to do SWIFT payments, obviously through the Society for Worldwide Interbank Change, Financial Telecoms, and another very, very substantive element, which is called the card not present capability. Chair, this capability is that capability that gives you the ability to sit in front of your computer without a card and place an order for certain things and so on. Our segment class is growing. We are seeing growing middle class teachers, government employees, payroll, people who are really up to that middle segment. And there's also this big drive that we see almost in the whole of South Africa, where there's almost the remigration back to the rural areas, especially the generation born in the 60s and the 70s who are now reaching that maturity age to actually come back and invest. They have got these needs that are actually very urban. So this sponsorship, we engaged with Absa. Unfortunately, they did not accede to our request. And currently, there is a transitional program that we are currently also negotiating with another prospective sponsor bank where they're going to take over effectively from the 1st of May. So as we speak, you might have seen in the media that Absa is cancelled. This is not correct, that narrative to say Absa is not here. We continue to operate in terms of that capability that Absa gives us with a transitional plan to enter into another arrangement with another institution that has expressed an interest to assist us. The next slide, which I think is key, Chair, is the impact of the Financial Matters Amendment Act of number 18 of 2019. Now, this piece of legislation that's set before this August House, I believe around December 2018, albeit with its good intentions to split the regulatory space around the Twin Peaks, having the Financial Sector Conduct Authority on one hand and the Prudential Authority, has had unintended consequences for Itala. We went and looked at the Hansard records of Parliament, and we can see in the negotiations, especially when this act was still a bill amendment act, the discussions that are ensuing in that debate in that committee are that whilst Financial Matters Amendment Act will be amended, Itala would not be affected by such a dispensation. In other words, there was always an intent nationally that Itala would actually be either be given some special dispensation or some reform, or also under the ambit of the Minister of Finance, that would be the case. This lends itself, in 2016, Itala made an application for the Section 12 application, which is the first process. You apply for Section 12 authorization before you go to Section 16 to be registered as a bank. The outcome of that Section 16 pointed to a number of things that needed to be fixed, which over the last 3 years, mostly of those have been fixed, bar maybe one or two that have changed as a result of the
Dr. Vilagaz, you seem to be having a challenge with the network.
Thank you so much, Chair. I'm sure the Group CEO will jump in if the bandwidth problems persist.
Okay, Dr. Vilagaz, are you there?
Honorable Chair, may we crave your indulgence so that in the interim, we allow the Group CEO, Pearl, to come in and proceed, because I think his network is not strong.
Okay. Mohammed, can you proceed? And try to gallop, Mohammed. We don't have much time. We are having a sitting this afternoon. So we want to have enough time to engage with the presentation. Just don't read what is written here. Just go through the slide. What is it all about? Because we have the information that has been you have sent to us. Quickly go through the remaining slides.
Chair, I think the Honorable MEC Duma asks for the Group CEO to come on, Ms. Paul Benku, to just take us through this.
Is the Group CEO here?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will just go through the slide, but I won't even read the slide to line by line, because I understand the impact of the Financial Matters Amendment Act, which was then in 2019. When the Act was taken to the public, it was said that, we do have some institutions like the Post Bank and Itala that were ready to be the state bank. But I think the problem is when the Act went into Parliament in the first place, it was saying now the national entity, the national SOE, can only be the one that can be given a banking license. That's the amendment that is with the Bank Act. So that Act then excluded Itala, because Itala at that moment, or at this moment as well, is only in KZN. It's a KZN-based entity. So that's the problem that we're having. I think in the next slide, Dr. Vilakazi was just indulging. Okay, I won't go into the sequence of events because most of those events are the events that has taken place, and there's some court issues that have been written in those events. But the last slide that I saw last night, it was when Dr. Vilakazi was also asking that if this House can then be able to change, to amend the Financial Matters Amendment Act to include provincial state-owned SOE by removing the prefix national from the Banks Act. And then the lawmaking process must be fast-tracked through a members' bill before the expiry of the 6th administration, as the consequences are dire for the financially excluded, mainly in rural areas. And then develop legislation to open the banking industry landscape, include commercial banks, specialized lending institutions, payment banks, housing, and construction. And then, Chair, if I may just say that the first exemption that we got was already for the commercial bank. We were doing fully what the commercial banks were doing, of which Itala is more than ready to be a commercial bank. I think I will just end it there, Chair. I've just left the other part because you will be reading it as the members, but you'll see that it's got some areas where we included the court processes that we are in. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much, Group CEO, Madam Pearl. You are welcome. Let me see, Tombentum. We were worried why you are not here in this meeting, because this is a very crucial engagement. So I see you have written an apology that the special shop programs in Etequin. So we are not going to have you for a long time here so that we don't disrupt your program. We'll want you to say something either now or because after Dr. Vilakazi, I was going to allow Vukile from Treasury to deal with this issue, because now Itala says, look, we have been operating this institution using the exemption notice, and the minister has withdrawn the exemption notice, and now the Prudential Authority doesn't want to grant us a license. So let me allow Vukile to explain what's happening in this regard with specific reference to Itala. Why did the Treasury of course, the issue of the land. Over to you, Vukile and your team.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. It's important perhaps just to start off, Chair, by just outlining that we at the Treasury are not directly party to the individual regulatory issues between the regulators and a regulated entity in general. Having said that, Chair, I think that there are a few salient issues that we can provide our understanding of in relation to Itala. Of course, Chair, as you'd be aware, there's some. We are currently being again taken to court by Itala, so that there are a few issues that we will not be able to provide as much detail on as we would like. Chair, We've been engaging in these issues for a number of years, and the latest issues that maybe have come before this committee have been communicated to us by Itala over several months, including 2 specific letters that they wrote to us in December. Chair, we had responded to Itala on a lot of the points that have been raised in front of this committee, but we're happy to provide that detail once again. One of the important things to note, Chair, is that the Itala has requested from the minister to grant an exemption. Of course, this is the exemption that expired on the 15th of December in 2023. They also requested that the minister intervene in the matter with the Prudential Authority on their behalf. Chair, this came within the context of legal proceedings instituted by Itala to interdict the expiry or the non-renewal of the exemption and the appointment of a repayment administrator. Chair, in that judgment, the High Court on the 15th of December found that the withdrawal of the exemption to be lawful and consistent with the law, as well as the appointment of the repayment administrator in the interest of depositors and safeguarding the deposits of individual savers. Chair, Section 11C of the Banks Act requires the minister to concur with the exemption issued by the Prudential Authority. As such, the minister does not have the authority to issue exemptions in terms of the law. The issuance of exemption, Chair, is a regulatory function that is performed by the Prudential Authority of South Africa as an independent regulatory authority exercising that power in the interests of depositors. That exercise of power, Chair, like I've outlined, has been confirmed by multiple court judgments. And the limitations of the minister have similarly also been confirmed by competent courts. Apologies. Notwithstanding this, Chair, it's important that the committee is aware that an exemption is aimed at being a temporary instrument to allow an institution to operate legally. Chair, Itala has been operating under an exemption for 23 years. And we understand the concerns that have been outlined, Chair. But of course, as I've outlined earlier, we are constrained by the judgments and the findings of the competent courts in relation to the concerns that have been raised by Itala and have been settled. Again, Chair, of course, you'll be aware that we again will be in court for the courts to adjudicate additional aspects that Itala wishes to challenge. And of course, Chair, anyone in any corporate citizens is fully within their rights to exhaust the appeals, the appeal functions of the courts. Chair, I'm gonna end off by maybe just outlining that the purpose of a payments administrator, Chair, is to ensure that the aspects of which Itala can no longer legally operate. So this is just the deposit-taking activities of the business. The repayment administrator, in our understanding, is now the competent authority for that. So in essence, the activities relating to deposit taking have effectively been divested from the Itala management here today, and now vests legally with the repayment administrator. And I mentioned that, Chair, just so that you would be aware that if you had any additional or specific questions relating to the aspects of this activity, that those legally now reside with the repayment administrator and not with the management or the board. Lastly, Chair, it's just I think it's important for us to I guess all be aware of why this action was or why the appointment of the repayment administrator is so critical. Chair, the repayment administrator's role is really singular, and that is to ensure, Chair, that the deposits that are with Itala, that are now with the institution outside of the legal framework, i.e. the license, are safe, that depositors can, with a high level of confidence, be sure that if and when they want to access their funds, that they will be made available, and that the institution operates within the framework of the regulatory aims that we have designed over multiple decades. Chair, I'm going to stop there in the interest of time.
Okay. Before the MEC chairperson, do you want to say something?
Yes, Chairperson, thank you very much. Just a few comments on what Vogilev just said. Firstly, on the issue about judgment, there has never been any judgment in terms of the appointment of...
Wait, Ithala. I did not know that we were going to challenge Vogilev. After engagement by the members of the committee, there's the next item is for yourselves and the team to come back and respond. So hold on, amongst other issues that you are going to respond upon is what Davidson has raised. Tomben, MEC, you are welcome. There seemed to have been no proper coordination. I'm not sure why. You went to the launch of a Spaza Shop program, which is a very critical program. Be that as it may, we are seated here to deal with a matter of national interest. We have seen banks collapsing, and case in point is the VBS, which has collapsed under our watch. And then will not allow any other financial institution to go the route that the VBS has gone. Hence, when we had in the media and publicly and through the reports that Itala has got challenges. Actually, we should have come to meet you in Durban or Pietermaritzburg, but because now we have got a limited time as we're approaching the rising of Parliament, we felt that let's deal with this issue through the virtual platform, and we'll compile a report because Parliament will be rising not so long, and make sure that this matter is followed through. Over to you, MEC Tuma.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson, once again for affording us this opportunity. Let me greet your good self and Honorable Alan and the entire committee present. Let us also greet the leadership of Itala, the HOD of the department, Dr. Ellenson. I'm sure the presentation that was done by Dr. Vilakazi suffice on the outlook and the projection of what ought to be done, but it also suffice on covering the length and breadth of what is Itala and what does it represent in the interim. I'm sure it has also delved deeper on the issue that Itala currently, in terms of the liquidity ratio, is performing very well, as opposed to the doomsayers or others who think that even the misunderstanding of the judgment. I'm glad that the chair, Pupuma, is going to come back, probably and elucidate more point. Probably, Chair, but I think I wanted to first comment your sterling role that you have played up until right now, because where honor is due, it must be given. You have been advocating for this, and even right now, how you are summarizing our understanding. I must also thank you, the role that we've played. I think you're also aware that the role that has been played by the Chair of Appropriations is also equivalent and critical at this point in time. Why the outlook of Itala is critical in the current epoch is that when we all do the DORA, when you appropriate the bill down there, the money is they going to cascade. Almost all the major banks are always at the forefront in terms of distribution, the Standard Primary Bank and all those things. And unfortunately, at all material time, even the committees, because they are also members, the reality is that there is a profiling within the banking sector in South Africa. And another reality is that as we address the imbalance of the past using our policies, our people are not benefiting in this process. You still have to come with what you have in terms of the ratio. You must tell them what you have, then you'll be disqualified. And Itala amongst has been able to, for quite some time in the province, to give loans in rural areas. People can't qualify because they were disadvantaged historical, because probably they've been blackmailed. Itala is able to sustain the spaza shop, the retail outlet that we have in the country, as one was saying, that unfortunately we wish the communication was not done, but we had to just leave aside everything because you've been trying for this meeting and we had to honor it because it's a critical thing. And Itala has been even sustaining the bonds, those who can't qualify it, in Mlazi, Bamashu, Ntuzum, in the township, because you know the issue even of the middle strata, how is it done? So this opportunity is critical. And I had, on a lighter note, that my learned friend, my friend, Honorable Manye, has always said that the MEC has snapped the committee. I didn't. So he knows that one is always meticulous. It was this, but I'm saying that we had to come and honor. Then it's true, Chair, that other banks have collapsed and citation of VBS might be true, but because one comes from at the level of his strength at Itala, I wouldn't say that you can even compete and compare such, because Itala, as I've already highlighted, what it has achieved and the liquidity ratio and all those things. And unfortunately, the role of an RA, how it's defined, is not what we're told, because the goalpost keeps on changing. The initial thought that they were just going to come, because I think their understanding, whether the RA and provincial authority, they felt like the Tala was a Ponzi scheme, or it was treated as a Ponzi scheme. It must be recorded correctly because it doesn't operate that way. It is not. And the Group CEO highlighted the issue of the definition which was inserted at the bill, disadvantage Itala, which we always thought it is going to get that. And I will still persuade the honorable members who are here that just imagine in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng has been here twice already. The MEC responsible for economic development wanted to benchmark because they want to open something like Itala. Because in this financial year, we've appropriated 145 billion. Just imagine that within the sector of the bank, which one could define as a very progressive entity that could change our people's life. It means that we want proper access to resources. They will not be prejudiced of who they are. They will not be profiled of historical, where do they come from. It will be easy. So we've been fighting that battle for over some time, and we hope at some point in time being prejudiced like this is going to come to an end. And we are gladly saying that this sixth term is coming to an end, and we hope and pray that they'll be able to remember, amongst other policies, and in the Constitution, what is inserted in the Bill of Rights will be defined outside of the scope of a serious program, financial, if institution like Itala. We want to highlight that for us. I think it's a bully tactics, and these advocacy groups, I could just say that it comes from these main banks in the country. I would want to lend, but I know this is political, this is not primarily economical, that unfortunately, this portfolio committee plays a critical role in terms of oversight. But those who are having the authority, I thought by now they will be emphatic on the point of what transpired, on what is regarded as the rand manipulation in real context, because these banks are not going to be punished or anyway, they're not even going to be fined. But Itala, what is progressive, a government entity, at the end of the day must be treated badly and eventually probably strip off the license. Then our people are going to suffer. So I crave the indulgence of the consciousness of this portfolio committee. I've already thanked, because our assignment is to defend. Our assignment is to stand for those who are vulnerable and defend them at the same time. So I just wanted to highlight those, Chairperson, and thank you so much for being gracious and affording us this opportunity.
Thanks, MEC, for your input. Whilst you are here, let me open up for members of Parliament to engage with the presentation. Honorable members, I see Dr. George, Honorable Mannion. Okay, for now, let's take those hands. Dr. George.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks very much for the presentation. I must say that I am pleased to hear that the bank isn't having liquidity problems or something of that sort, because, I mean, we all know the dire consequences of when that happens. So that was good to hear. Also, I was actually quite shocked to hear that the bank has been operating under an exemption for 23 years. Now, I mean, you know, that is a very long time. So there's obviously reasons for it, etc., but I really think that this matter needs to be sorted out. From what I've heard, and I don't know any more detail other than what I've heard here, is I can't see why the bank is not able to get the time it needs, etc., for a speedy resolution. It doesn't seem right to me that there is this complexity with the deposit taking, because it must hamper the ability to work. So this process does not seem to have gone well. I don't know, you know, the detail of what Treasury's role is. Treasury has explained somewhat, not entirely certain, but I think one thing I would conclude from what I've heard is that it's not okay to be working on an exemption for 23 years. It's not okay that the paperwork that is required has not been done. And it's not okay that we now look like there's like court action going on, etc. I mean, surely there's a better way. But anyway, I do believe that we will get more information on that. It is so also that Itala Bank is in fact one of few banks that offer pension-backed loans for home loans, as is permitted by the law. And that is, I think, a good service to the community because it is necessary. Also, which is part of the presentation which I saw flighted, was that the bank does offer these home loans, pension-backed home loans. And of course, everybody knows that pension reform is in fact in progress at the moment. In fact, we're discussing the revenue law section of that today in the House. But something that we need to consider is that if the facility to expand the loan facilities beyond home loans from pension funds for members to leverage their own pension asset to their own benefit needs to be considered. But that, of course, is going to come up as we debate the new pension amendment bill. But I think that's a factor. And when I saw that slide from Itala, I thought, well, you know, that would make perfect sense. So, for example, you could have a loan that was repaid over time on favorable terms. And it certainly seems that the bank is able to do that because it is able to do home loans. So that's all I wanted to say, Chair. I think from where I'm sitting and what I've seen is that I would actually support the bank in its push to get this matter sorted out, and also to get the time it needs to be able to function effectively. Because if it is in fact providing the service without any liquidity problems, etc., to the community, then I think it deserves some support. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Dr. George. Honorable Manyu.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me start by saying I listened very carefully to the MEC. I thought the very first thing that he was going to do is to offer his profuse apology for not being at the meeting when the meeting started. So, Chair, I would ask you that at some point you diarize giving him an opportunity to make this apology himself, as it were. And as he does, Chairperson, I would ask that he must also just take us into confidence in terms of the MINMEC meetings, whether in the MINMEC meetings, did he raise these matters that the Itala Bank is raising? Because there's that government structure, there's that structure which ministers and MECs meet. How many times? I mean, I'm really interested in the empirical evidence here, Chair, even if it includes submission of minutes to show that the seriousness that the MEC has expressed here today is not just PR work here, that in fact, indeed it has happened. I'm looking for evidence, Chairperson, via the MINMEC meeting that the MEC has been raising these matters with the National Treasury. That's on that one, Chair. Chairperson, I just want to emphasize what I've heard here today. Firstly, I must also just thank the CEO of the Itala Bank and everybody that has been presenting here, that I think they have made a very solid case as to their situation. What I've heard here, Chairperson, which the record will show, that as we sit here and now, this bank has got no liquidity problem. It's very important. This bank here has got no capital adequacy ratio problem. This bank here has got no liquid asset ratio problem. The cost-to-income ratio is improving. The CEO gave us the trajectory of where he started and where things are. So it's going in the right direction. There is no impairment on this bank. The net stable funding ratio is on the right side of the equation. There are no unsecured loans on this bank. So I'm actually perplexed when the National Treasury is saying this is to save depositors. Save them from what? When there are no unsecured loans here. So what exactly are you saving the depositors from? So it doesn't make sense, Chairperson, what National Treasury has said on this one, on this thing. My understanding, as articulated by the Itala Bank here, Chairperson, that we're dealing with here, we're dealing with an issue of exemption notice, which is really has been withdrawn here by a political animal. This is what we have. So we actually have a political problem here, Chairperson. I mean, the ANC has told us that 30 years is not enough to transform South Africa, but yet 23 years seems to be too much for Itala Bank. I mean, we must just be clear as to what is it. If 23 years is too much, then 30 years then must also be too much for things that should have happened. I mean, bridges are still not built in these 30 years. Many things, people are still drinking dirty water in these 30 years. So if 30 years is not enough, why is 23 years enough, Chairperson? And Chairperson, what actually makes my heart sink is that these banks that are largely African-driven have survived in the apartheid era. Why is it that we have an ANC government that is hell-bent on using the law to destroy banks? We had African Bank of Mutswenyane that has survived the apartheid era and died in this democracy. We had VBS Bank that has survived in the apartheid era and got killed in this democracy under the leadership of the ANC. What is this, Chairperson? Why is it that we have an ANC that speaks left but walks right? ANC is busy destroying our institutions here, Chairperson. I really have a problem with this posture, this political posture of the ANC on these things. the Prudential Authority should be characterized as a killer. This institution has been at the helm, has been at the forefront of destroying institutions. I mean, right now, we've got a 360-degree institution that has got all the numbers, just like Itala Bank has got. They've got the numbers right and everything. I mean, this bank has been on business rescue, or that institution has been on business rescue for more than 2 years. And what is it that are busy rescuing there? All the 360-degree people have been saying is that our things are fine, but Prudential Authority, for some reason, has got a mission to destroy 360 degrees. So indeed, I think, Chairperson, we have a serious problem with the political direction that is being given by these state apparatus. The Itala Bank is in a very difficult situation to have been depending on call it a competitor for which had a clearing license. So clearly, because they can see that this bank is solid and all of that, now they're pulling carpet under their feet. This is what it is. They're just pulling carpet under their feet. Because if you look at the numbers are looking right. All the numbers have been and we now have a situation where what's this now? Can you hear me, Chairperson? Because this phone here, I'm hot spotting here. Apologies, Chair. We have a situation here, Chairperson. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, so to a hotspot Essendon, where you have got all the Wi-Fi broadband.
No, I'm in Cape Town. Chair, to stop the ANC from impeaching Shope. Yes. Yeah. What we have here, Chairperson, we have ordinary people that are just being are going to be disorganized. About Goko, like the Chairperson, the CEO was saying, with their little nice bank books, they still have those bank books. They hold them with pride. I know this for a fact. Now, all we have is a government that is not sensitive to the needs of the people. We have a government that is there with an axe that just wants to chop anything as long as it's black lead. I mean, what nonsense is this, Chairperson? I'm really angered by this, Chairperson. This bank has been around for the past 60 years. It survived apartheid. Now the ANC government is at the center of wanting to destroy this bank, Chairperson. So I really have a problem with Chairperson. In terms of way forward, I think what we have here, Chairperson, we've already been told that this bank actually has got a way forward, and the way forward is another, in the interim, they've got another institution with a clearing capacity that can replace basically ABSA or whoever, ABSA, so that everything is where it should be. So therefore, I don't understand why they can't just have the extension required for them to do the paperwork that is required to do that. I mean, even if you look at this Financial Matters Act, that for some reason, it's another political problem, Chairperson. The ANC-dominated parliament has passed a law to exclude Itala Bank from the dispensation of that Financial Matters Act and made it only for national. I mean, why do we do this when we know that we've got Itala Bank, but to make a law that will deliberately trip Itala Bank? Why are we doing this? You know, why do we have politicians that make all kinds of platitudes about caring for the people of this country, but where it matters in terms of making laws that reflect this so-called caring, we have laws that are destroying the lives of the people? Why do we do this, Chairperson? So for us as the EFF, Chairperson, we are fully. We are appreciative of the fact that there is no corruption on the cards that is being spoken of. We are fully happy with the fact that the numbers are all looking good. And we think this is just exposing the intent by this ruling party to destroy anything that has got black leadership. So indeed, Chairperson, I think I would support a motion that says the exemption must be extended, and it's not just being extended in darkness and in hope that we don't know until when. We have been told that there is a clearing institution, so arrangements are happening, and those are still confidential. We accept, we understand that, and we don't want to be told who is doing this because we understand the sensitivities of the issues. But we have been told here by people with who are fit and proper. The board of the Itala Bank is fit and proper. These are all distinguished professionals that are running this institution, and all we want to do now is to rubbish their CVs, because this is what it is. Because if you rubbish Itala Bank, then it means the board of Itala Bank, all those distinguished individuals in that board, are now going to be tarnished as people that have failed, when in fact they have not failed. These people have been doing a sterling job. They've been exemplary in how to do things. And what we have here is just political machinations. So, Chairperson, I don't think Parliament should sympathize with political machinations. I honestly think that the committee must resolve that the minister, in fact, these ministers are captured, Chairperson. This is the problem. When I've heard the MEC here talking about the rand manipulation. Maybe the MEC doesn't know that when we're dealing with the rand manipulation here, when the Parliament, when there was an emergency meeting called by Parliament, the minister did not even pitch. I mean, this is what happened. This is the attitude of the political leadership we have. It did not pitch a national issue of rand manipulation, an issue which probably has contributed to calls a meeting, the minister doesn't pitch. So what we have here is a political posture that is very disruptive, a political posture that is not assisting with the development of the people. So, Chairperson, let me leave it there and say that I want to move that the exemption must be extended pending and then the board must tell us how much time they need, and that's what should happen. This bank is one of those banks that cannot fail because there's no corruption. This bank cannot fail because it's got no liquidity problem. All we have is just the technicalities that we have here, Chairperson. I think let me just see what other point am I leaving behind here. No, Chairperson, I think I've covered everything. I really want to congratulate the Itala Bank for the sterling work that they've been doing. I think we have a political problem here, Chair. I think this thing must be solved. This problem, Chairperson, can be solved in one day. This is a one-day problem. This is not something that should require anything else. I hear that I don't even think that the Itala Bank should waste his time trying to respond to what Treasury has said. They have said what they have said. The things are in court. I think what they have said enough to expose that what this is all about is just political machinations. We've got legislation that is excluding them. All we need to do with that private members bill, which I would support, Chairperson, and if no one is interested in it, the EFF will grab the opportunity to push for that private members bill. I mean, between now and closure of Parliament, if all the timetables agree and all of that, EFF will be supportive of that. I mean, ahead of time, we're very clear on this, that that private members bill to make sure the inclusion of Itala Bank into the FMA Financial Matters Act will support that. So I think that those are the processes that we should be dealing with, as opposed to you said, I said. Let's put the process in place to make sure that we regularize the situation. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thanks, Honorable Manyu. Jali, Sikosa.
Ngiyathokoza Sihlalo uhloniphekileko, and good day to all honorable members present the Honorable MEC, the leadership of Itala Bank, as led by its board chairperson, the National Treasury, the PBO, our support team, and all other stakeholders present. Yeah, no, we really welcome the presentation as made by the CEO and CFO of Itala Bank. I think it's a very good presentation, and I think at least it's giving us a picture of what is happening at Itala Bank, and I hope also the public is also able to appreciate and get a sense of what is happening in that particular bank. So we really appreciate that. Just few questions from my side, Honorable Chair. One, seeing that Itala Bank is currently not having a liquidity challenge based on the presentation that was made here, but also seeing that even though it doesn't have liquidity challenge, but it looks like it's not profitable. So my question is that the fact that the bank currently, it does not look as being profitable, doesn't that going to pose a liquidity challenge for the future? That's my first question. My second question is, despite the bank not having any debt with the state, but is the bank perhaps considering receiving a guarantee from the IDFC group? My third question is with regards to the issue of ABSA. Why is ABSA not continuing with its partnership with Itala Bank? And what impact will that have on the intended objectives of collaboration from the Itala side? And my final question, Chair, is how is Itala Bank addressing the issue of financial inclusion, particularly for the poor and unemployed, and also those who are in the informal sector? Because as public representative, I think we've got a vested interest in those who are previously disadvantaged and who are vulnerable. So we want to know on the issue of inclusion, how much attention is Itala placing on these vulnerable groups and previously disadvantaged community? Ngiyathokoza Sihlalo.
Siyathokoza, Charlie. Honorable Abram.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you so much. Once again, I want to appreciate the presentations. But Chair, let me just caution that we do not start the argument on the political stewardness as we discuss the bank. Let's try, we may be tempted and forget that, yes, under the leadership of the ANC, some parties that are known to Honorable Manyi have also grabbed from the previously disadvantaged banks. So let's not go there, Chair. That would be my plea, first and foremost. Secondly, Chair, I would like the bank to, Itala, to just comment.
Yeah, I will allow to raise point of orders here, because we could not have snide comments being made on matters that are still pending in court. The honorable member knows that the issue that she is busy sneaking in here is in court. No, she's out of order, Chair. She must withdraw that comment.
Honorable Manyi.
Yes, Chair.
Well, you know very well, you are an honorable member. Please don't do things in that manner. Allow other members of the committee to participate in this platform without fear. I allowed you to raise your issues. You said all sorts of issues about the minister, the ANC, how the ANC is captured and all. I never intervened. So if Honorable Abraham now talks about your party, now you interject, please don't do that. It's a matter of political debate.
Thank you, Chair.
Continue.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, before I go on with my other questions, I would like to make a firm proposal that as a committee, we engage the minister, even if it's in the form of a letter that the committee writes, so that the minister becomes aware. It cannot be, Chair, that we have been indulged with this kind of information. And now the minister should provide leadership in resolving the Itala case. And the interest of all of us here is to ensure the sustainability of Itala. However, we cannot, as Treasury, for instance, Vukile, through you, Chair, come up with what Itala has failed to do and what not. Rather, we have a duty to guide and ensure that we do not come to a place where now we can say, no, it's enough, no more. Let us hold the hands of such transformative banks that seek to provide the necessary opportunities that have not been there in the past. So, Chair, my concrete proposal, Finance Committee, as we are, of which I think we agree, have an interest on the existence of Itala. So the minister must provide leadership to ensure that the bank stands. Chair, my question to Itala is whether there is any support that they provide for SMMEs at low cost, of course, and what is the measure that is there in Itala to ensure that SMMEs are provided with the necessary assistance. We have had the profile of the users of Itala. Are there some elements that have been left out that they can tell us about? Chair, the extent of the deposits solicited from members of the public and held unlawfully by a person, can Itala comment on that? As you said, Chair, that we have had reports from various entities regarding Itala, hence the meeting of today. My last question, Chair, would be on Itala's views on open banking as a gateway to transform the financial sector, because this is a long-standing challenge in our country, the transformation of the financial sector. Thank you so much, Chair.
Honorable Mavilat.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and honorable members, MEC, Itala Bank staff, and Treasury staff. We appreciate what Itala Bank is doing for our people, and we know that as long as they are there, our people will be fully transformed. And we know that when we take our money to the bank, we are just hoping that, that money is going to be secure and will gain interest rate. We really appreciate of what they are doing. I've got just a couple of questions that I'm asking them. The first one is the cost to income ratio is way above the set threshold. And what are the drivers of the increase, such as the operating cost exceeds income? And what impact does this have on the future sustainability of the operation of Itala? And another question is, how has the bank been performing in sustaining them and meeting the capital reserve requirements of the bank over the past 5 years? And the third question is, what measures are required to increase Itala's income to balance the cost to income ratio? The last one, what impact has the cost to income ratio state have on the valuation of the bank? Thank you, Chair. I appreciate.
Really, the CEO back. Dr. Vilakazi.
Yes, Chair, I'm here.
Yes.
Ukuphi ungabi kwamsinga when we're having a meeting with you.
No, Chair, I'm here. I'm listening and writing profusely from the honorable members.
I was at the Tugela Ferry on Sunday. I went up to Umsinga top lapha.
Yes.
So I saw Itala ATMs. Kunemolo lapha Umsinga Ferry. And
Yes,
Tugela
yes.
Ferry, where there is that big bridge here, Tugela River.
Yes,
So
that's the belly of KwaZulu Natal, where KwaZulu Natal starts.
Oh, okay. No, I was there. But I went up to Umsinga top lapha. So I didn't see the houses that you are giving bonds to when you go up to deep rural. But
Yes.
I can see Umsinga Tugela Ferry is a growing point, which I saw a big board yaka Mtombeni lapha. Okay. Chairperson, CEO and your team, then the MEC, then we'll make follow-up questions. From there, we'll round up.
Yes. Through your chair, yes.
It's me first, but
I was going to hand the baton to you as a cup. That's what I was going to affirm. Thank you.
I know just down from the Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you very much. Firstly, I just want to assure this committee that in KZN, we enjoy a full political support right from our shareholder, the MEC, the finance department, and up to the premier. With all our troubles, which has started in 2022, when we applied for the exemption. In fact, the exemption expired on the 31st of December 2021, and then in 2022, we actually were issued with 3 exemptions, one which was expiring in March, and with us protesting, it was extended to June. And that one in June 2022, it was extended to 15th of December 2023. This is the one that has expired, and it has caused all these problems. Just to comment on the National Treasurer, one thing that is pleasing is that both Itala SOC and Itala Board and the National Treasurer agree on the role that a repayment administrator needs to play. And we really appreciate that, because that is where the cracks of all these court cases are actually covering. Secondly, there was no, when we went to court to challenge the appointment of the RA, and also to set it aside. We actually had to come to a consensus between the Prudential Authority and ourselves. So there was no court judgment, but there was an agreement which was made, a court order on the 20th of December, which was saying the exemption has expired. There is no exemption. And the Prudential Authority have appointed the payment administrator, and the payment administrator is appointed in terms of Section 84. And in that Section 84, he had to actually help Itala to come up with an alternative plan. So there was no judgment. It was that court order. But what happened is that after that court order was issued on the 20th, on the 27th, the creature that was born out of law, which was the repayment administrator, went to court in Pietermaritzburg now. And he actually came up with an ex parte court order, which was not just giving him authority over the deposits and the deposit taking activities, but he actually went there and said he wants to have control of all assets of Itala, including the monies that are actually being paid by the government, and also the monies that belongs to IDFC that we do the collection. And that is why we are at court, because while he said verbally to us he's going to operate under the court order of the 20th, he went ahead and he operated under the court order, which is the ex parte court order, and took off all our assets. As we speak now, he has actually frozen our bank accounts. Before our management or executive can do anything, they have to actually beg him to sign off things that he doesn't understand, things that are actually going to cause a run to Itala Sock Limited by the customers. So that is the dilemma that we are actually facing at this point in time, is that ex parte court order, which the repayment administrator have created and granted to himself. So we had to go to court for that. And also we had to go to court because we wanted the court to confirm exactly what the National Treasury is saying, that the repayment administrator is actually a repurposed repayment administrator. He has to help us to actually manage all the deposits that were in existence before the 15th of December 2023, and also the ones that the customers are actually depositing, while we are negotiating with an alliance that is actually going to take over all our deposits, which is a very risky process, but it's the only way that as the board we saw it's visible to actually make sure that Itala Sock does not collapse. So that is where we are, and I will allow Dr. Vilakazi to actually take all the other questions that relates to operational issues. Thank you, Chair.
Can I come in, Chair, before Dr. Vilakazi, as you have indicated, so that we come easier for you before you come to technical explanation?
You will come after, Ntomi. You are a politician.
No problem. No problem, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, Chair, we appreciate the comments from the members that have been expressed here, particularly the aspects of the evidence that were provided in terms of the case of Itala and how Itala has actually been performing over 3 years. When Honorable Member Mani was raising his matters, it came to a very important matter, which I think had also been raised under the National Treasury about the 23 years. Now, in terms of that exemption notice instrument, so originally the exemption was made for an interim basis that you would evolve to transform and become a bank. Chair, I'll share here with the members. You'll recall, Chair, that before the advent of democracy, just around 1986, the year which our honorable first president was supposed to come out, he came out later in 1990. Around 1989, there was an amendment of the current Banks Act. Those who have worked in banking and also been very close in the space here, will remember that pre-1989, you had institutions that were housing institutions that provided loans, and a number of brands that are no longer there. Some of us started banking in those early days where you had building societies and so on. So what happened when the Act was amended in 1989, it was consolidated. A banking institution became one institution. But at that point in time, and also leading to the amendment way down the line of 2018, which is the Financial Matters Amendment Act, there was no provision of an institution such as Itala. Itala was simply left hanging. And if we wear our caps in terms of our experience and expertise, Pan-African, which we have spent for many years, you take a country like Nigeria, over the last couple of years, you would see that when it comes to a regulatory landscape, they create various entry points. Yes, you would have commercial banks, and then you would have specialized lending institutions, you would have construction banks, you would have housing banks, and many other institutions which are designed to deal with a particular aspect. Now, if you look quickly at our regulatory space, you would see that it makes just two tiers. The tier one is obviously the commercial banks that are required to carry 250 million of risk-weighted assets, simply loans and advances in terms of that. And right at the bottom, you have the requirement of 10 million, which is your mutual bank. Now, there's nothing in between in that legislation that represents Itala. So the lifeline that would have been provided by the Financial Matters Amendment Act would have been an opportunity for a provincial entity such as Itala to rise, to become a contributor to the national agenda, to actually become a national asset. So that put paid in terms of that aspiration. Many banks in the world, the largest bank in China, started as a regional bank. And obviously, we do have certain views in terms of something can start in any province in this country, and it could have a national impetus and a national effect. The fact that Itala is here in KwaZulu-Natal, it is a national asset. I have been told, Chair, rightly or wrongly, that the spheres of government are equal. And they have also to perform certain functions, and those functions would actually entail that. So the 23 years is not like the Itala sitting on its laurels. After 2016, they were going to fix three things. And then the Act came and said, your shareholder does not qualify to apply. Now they have to deal with that problem. So when I was brought on board to fix that particular problem. And the shareholder, which is the province, dealt with that problem by creating a mechanism where we're going to create an interposed company that would then take a share and then try and fit ourselves into this act, which calls for a national state-owned entity to be the main shareholder. But to do that, as I alluded earlier on, you would need then to go through the whole piece of legislation around PFMA. A good case in point, when Telkom wanted to list in New York and the NASDAQ, they had to get certain exemptions through the PFMA. Just the exemption process itself can run almost 2 to 3 years. Hence the issue of pragmatism, which I also was supported by one of the honorable members here, which I think was Honorable Member George, in terms of the fact that the aspects of making sure that we do deal with that problem, it is dealt with. we also this year or last year were conscious of the fact that we needed time to do things. Upon my assumption of being a CEO here, on the 20th of November 2020, I made my first extension application because I looked at the needs, for an example, of capital that is required. Government is required to inject more capital. We know that there's a fiscal constraints so if we have then to change the shareholding of this institution, we would need that time. But one of the key aspects of also having the time would be to change the model of the bank. And there is what we call in banking the regulatory tsunami. There's so many laws after 2008 that we have to comply with, and so many Basel principles that are made for us to be able to fulfill, which requires substantive capital investment. And that capital investment could only come through when we get shareholders that would then uplift together with the province. Not that the province is not overtly opposed to anyone coming in. However, the mandate of Itala would then remain in the main to be financial inclusion and the mandate of that sort. So that glaring gap in the regulatory piece, I've tabled this with some of the deputy governors at the highest level in this country to say they need to relook at that regulatory landscape, because what we are trying, what is happening, Itala is being tried to be fitted into a space where it doesn't fit. So I'm appreciative of the comments that were made by Honorable Member Mani. There's also, I would not comment on the aspects that were raised by National Treasury. I think the chair has dealt with those matters profusely. At this juncture, Chair, I would also maybe venture into the questions raised by Honorable Kichimani Skosan Babe. The first question was the issue of profitability. Will it eventually lead to a liquidity problem? Now, obviously, there are a number of schools of thought. But when you talk profitability in terms of just in simple terms, we're talking about internal capital formation. So in other words, the bank needs to earn enough for it to be able to generate a retained earnings or the surplus or the profits. Now, if you look at how banks are structured, they've got tier 1 and tier 2 capital. So if the bank is not earning much on the retained earnings, that means the tier 1 capital is not accumulating. So that's the theory and that's the eventuality. Now, tier 2 is any funds that the bank could then go and raise in the public domain. But because Itala is a PFMA institution, we know that there are sections that prohibit it to go out in the open market and raise money. So the problem of profitability has to be fixed over a period of actually turning around the business and repositioning it. So we've done a number of things. The first thing that we have looked at how the bank is structured, how the bank is functioning, how our client-facing staff versus our back office staff. One of the first things that we did upon assumption of duty was to make sure that we have proper governance, which we have spoken to. We also brought in the supply chain management and got the right people to manage that so that there are no any revenues in that space. We also redefined our purpose and our model in terms of the new operating model, where we are shifting from having very processes. There are about 40 processes that we have identified. If those processes, we can actually change them, it could uplift our revenue by some 10% in terms of our calculation. So internal capital formation is as a result of certain investment. And we shouldn't be shy here. Over the years, the province has injected funds, but we know that the equitable share of all provinces in this country has been gradually reducing. So even if the province does want to inject a substantive amount of money, that would gradually not be able to fulfill all the requirements because of the increasing regulatory requirements that are in space. There are projects like RADAR, risk data aggregation, which most banks, even the big banks, are spending north of 400 million. So you look at the number of Itala as to how we would then raise that particular aspect. Are we seeing this as a problem? Yes, it's a problem that management has to deal with. We are projecting in terms of our numbers that by 2026, we would have a return, a profitable return. If all of these things that we're asking for and the pragmatic time that we require is actually dealt with. The issue of guarantee, through you, Chair, if I ask my senior, the Group CEO, to speak to with regard to that question later on after I've finished the question 3 and 4. Why ABSA is not continuing? What reason was given to us? Obviously, it's a commercial transaction and confidentiality that we have in terms of contractual and the commercial law. However, the one word that was used to us was the strategy misalignment. And we're not offered any other explanation other than that particular definition. We tried to source other banks. Some banks have moved away from sponsorship. They've actually, there's quite a few banks that are actually understanding this area. And by the way, Chair and members, our sponsorship requirements are not labor intensive. We have a hosting activity under Direct Transact, a hosting service. So mainly the role player plays mainly a regulatory and compliance role. They don't set up a back office to process our stuff. We do that. They don't set up a number of things that normally you would need to do that. Why we need a sponsorship? Because there's also another narrative that's developing where there's an argument that we don't need a sponsor. We do need a sponsorship. For us to be able to transition and enter into an alliance where that alliance does not lead into the demise of Itala, we need Itala to continue to be on the national payment system. And our prospective partners have told us that in terms of their governance framework, we need about 6, 8 to 12 months for them to go through their own governance processes for us to enter into an alliance. So either way, we cannot just be dropped from the national payment system, because if we do that, then we would not be acting into our fiduciary duty of care and care of our clients in terms of not taking care and actually letting those clients fall out of the base. In 2002, I happened to be at one of the top banks here in the country. We were the ones that were instrumental to open that national payment system. We also have one of the top experts that is in our fold now, Mr. Walter Volker, who is actually the author of the national payment system, who's actually working with us. So we are well informed in terms of what should really be happening. The role of financial inclusion, that's our mandate, Babes Kosan. It's our mandate that we live and breathe with it. And that's why we almost, one of the traits of working here, you need to be a bit unconventional in your thinking about banking, because most bankers, when they are taught, classically, they are told to do balance sheet lending. Some of us had the opportunity to be taught elsewhere in the world where you focus on cash flow funding, where you look at the needs of the person, even on a daily basis. There's a big program today that the MEC was launching, the RASET program, of which Itala SOC is present. That program will be talking about spaza owners or trade owners, trade store owners, who are actually becoming part and parcel of our economic transformation that is happening in the country. Part of participating in the RASET program is to deal exactly with some of the challenges where we don't ask people for collateral and security, but we look at their cash flow needs and determine the funding requirement as the analysis of the cash flow analysis. As we know, our people don't have anything to offer in terms of security and collateral. And that's Itala's philosophy in terms of how we do things. Yes, on the lower side, we also involve a lot in terms of other CSI program. Just to share with some of the things that we've done. During COVID, Itala actually ran an online platform called Edu Platform. We covered across the country 250,000 matriculants that were using our platform to actually get through on education. And what was interesting, because we had problems of load shedding and other things, we were able to offer that facility remotely, even if they didn't need to be live on the screen, as long as they could plug somewhere when they've got that opportunity, created centers for them. The other aspect that is quite critical is that we train people. On a year basis, we take about 100 interns. So if you come to Itala, you'll see young people that I call myself the second generation of bankers in this country after Gadi Makhumula and others. So we started in the late 80s. So it is our duty to make sure that the next layer of our professionals is built up. We have won awards, 4 awards with all sector authority in this country that have actually taken some of the training that's done in Itala as an example. So we'll continue to trust in that regard. This is our promise. And then there was a comment and a question from Honorable Mayor Dorothy Mabileta. We thank you and appreciate your words in terms of appreciation of the work that we're doing. You ask a question around the cost-to-income ratio. I'll allow my CFO through your chair to comment here, but I'll just throw one. So me and him, we always argue. He's a chartered accountant. I'm a chartered banker. So there's always a fight as to how we see things. But here is a nutshell. The cost-to-income ratio is obviously a determinant of certain factors. So banks in general, they would earn their income from interest revenue. In other words, we take out a loan, put a price, put a margin on it, and we charge out clients. Now, the economy has been going south, albeit with the challenges that it is facing. We currently have very high margins on the NIR, net interest income. When I took over, the non-interest revenue, which is what banks need to earn. In other words, the money that you charge from fees, the money that you charge for advice and other things needs to be at a ratio of about, say, 85% to the expense to cover your expenses. When I took over, it was around 14%. As we speak now, it's sitting at about 46%, because what we're doing, we're driving our capabilities to get our people to have a card at hand and use that card to transact, so that then we are less dependent on NII and more on the NIR, which means then we'll be able to turn around. But for that, you need a very agile operating model that we've created and so on. I'll leave the question on capital reserves to my CFO, as well as the balance sheet, as well as the valuation part of it. I think I have covered that. And then there is May Nokolo Abraham in terms of her questions. Yes, there is also a combination with our group, because we are part of the group, albeit in terms of reporting separately and being regulated separately. The group has a very extensive program on SME development. And we do also provide banking facilities to most of those SMEs that we talk about here. And we continue to work very closely with the province in identifying these opportunities where our people have to create jobs rather than them going to the job market. The model that we are applying obviously is capital intensive, because we're banking at distances and so on. So it's very challenging for us to offer a low cost operating model that would fulfill that particular aspect. But as we drive more volumes in our business and get all the right capabilities that I spoke about, real-time clearance and all those things that at this stage are not in our domain, we would be able to get the biggest chunk of that part. Just in terms of market size, so KwaZulu-Natal, you're talking about 7 million consumers that are in this category of LSM2 to LSM6. When you talk about SMEs, you're talking about almost 250 million worth of potential in this category that we have. Stokvels and cooperatives alone, KwaZulu-Natal is sitting at a potential in a 10 billion market. So you can see we're just sitting at maybe close to 2 billion in that market. There's more room for us to get banking to our people. Yes, segments are improving to your second question. We have new segments that are emerging. We're seeing young people. We have programs that we have not been able to share here. For instance, we have a very great program with one of our superstars in this country, Mr. Zakes Bantwini, the Grammy Award winner, where we are financing people in backyards. the two-roomed student that's sitting in a two-roomed house somewhere, and they don't have anyone who can finance that particular aspect. It's got 1 million followers, and we're tapping into that. And so these are some of the things that are very unconventional and challenging the status quo of how you do banking. I'll leave also the matter of unlawful maybe to my chair to comment back on. Very excited, Mayor Abraham, to talk about open banking. Yes, indeed, we have explored open banking. Yes.
Hello, Dr. Vilaga.
Yes.
The MEC has pressure for time because.
Oh yes, sorry, my apologies, Chair. Yes.
Just pause. You will continue.
Okay.
Because he has to address some people right now. They are waiting for him. Let's allow the MEC to make some comments. Release him. Then Dr. Filakazi will continue. Then the Group CEO comes, and then we'll wrap up from there. Mtombe.
Thank you so much. Anil said, Comrade DP, Honorable Chair, for affording us this opportunity. Indeed, the revolutionaries are guided by true feelings of love. So you are showing that displayed in a good manner. Let me profusely apologize officially, Chair. I did it earlier on and give the explanation. I'm sorry if I might have encroached under the scope of this portfolio committee. And I thank the Chair for allowing this opportunity. And it will never happen in the near future where, if all the things have been done correctly, we'll come to the meeting. So I hope that suffice, Honorable Chair. I'm glad that almost all the members, starting from Dr. George Ormani, Honorable Skosana, Babes Skosana Mhlanga, Mayor Abraham Otolo, Honorable Dorothy Mabietsa. So I think the principle is the same, the content is the same. So, but there are different matters that must be raised. I'm going to elevate only two that has been raised by Honorable Manyi on the issue of MinMec. The reality is almost is the same. This matter is more technical orientated in the nature how the bank regulatory framework operates in South Africa, in particular the bank like Itala. So I thought one must highlight, if you go to economic development cluster, there are no fundamental differences. Unfortunately, in terms of the MinMec, it's only the MEC Finance who sits in the MinMec of finance portfolio. And the reality is that Minister, in terms of the powers that are vested on his office in National Treasury, amongst them, there are some limitations as Prudential Authority operate independently out of the powers of the minister. So I thought that should be expatiated and must be understood thoroughly. But I'm glad that we also understand that this bank, even in the current framework, it is a bank that is assisting, it is a bank that is strong, it is a bank that, even if you talk about adequate capital ratio, is okay. So we're glad that we have this support and we are coming with a galvanized strategy even from this. I hope that where it matters, it will reach the concerns as well at the same time, so that we are able that even in this time, all these things are achieved. And we are glad that almost everyone understand why do we need an Itala as a bank, in particular in our provinces, in particular in addressing the imbalance of powers. There is a litany of evidence we've been lobbying. So if we have to send those documents, we will send. We've even written and all those things. So we want to thank you, Honorable Chair, for affording us this opportunity, and we are promising that we'll keep the fire burning up until some time where all the problems are resolved, and we are positive. And the attribute is that this matter will reach an amicable solution and our people will benefit in the process. Thank you so much, Chair.
Tomben, are you still there?
I'm done, Honorable Chair.
Okay, on Friday.
Yes.
On Friday, because I will be working from Durban, I will go to Itala offices. I want to see what's happening.
We'll be honored. We'll join you.
Yes, if
You
other
must take me
members,
with, Chair.
if other members are there, Manye, you can go. I saw you in Soweto with your overalls. Now I see Dr. George, if you are there, those who are there, I want to go to Itala office. I'm worried. This is a very, very big bank to me, and it caters for the rural masses. So let's allow you to be released to attend to another commitment. We'll see you on Friday. Thanks very much for honoring our.
Aluta continue, Chair.
So, Dr. Vilakazi, proceed, minding time. Members will be going to board the bus. It's not so long. Telapa sihlala enkoponi asihlali eSabha.
Yes, no.
Ngebhasi like
No. Thank you, Chair. I understand. I'm still in a village where there is a Pullman, so I understand.
Okay,
Yes.
let's allow you to speak. Then your group CEO comes before we.
Yes, just one question that I need to quickly address, raised by me, Honorable Abraham, around open banking. Yes, we have been engaged with a number of partners, prospectively though, and in fact with the assistance of the MEC to actually explore this. So the way we see open banking as a future way of banking. So what do we see? Let's take our branch at Kopo or Hipatin. When the mama or the granny comes there, instead of just doing their transacting around the money or collecting their social grant, but they would also effectively be connected to the harness system and be able to issue or press a request for that lost birth certificate or for that child who's born in the village without the certificate. We're also seeing the emergence of e-wallets, where people here in the market in Durban, we have one of our biggest branches here, Anton Lembede branch in Durban, where we do have hawkers and people who are actually fresh vegetable sellers who just need a capital for 3 or 5 days. So we should be able to issue microloans to that level where people can buy stock, perishable stock, and they sell it, they come and pay back a small amount, and they are able to go. So that's the future that we see in-store kiosks. You will start to see, assuming that we go through this cloud that we're in. We have a plan for in-store kiosks. We have a plan also to bring what we call ATM recyclers, where the cash that is circulating in a particular area is a cash that actually doesn't leave that area. And in banking, there are a number of ways of doing this, which we are able to explore. Let me rest the Chair and allow my Group CEO and the CFO and the Chair to take other questions that I've deliberately left for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair, Honorable Maswanganyi. Chair, maybe just to say I am definitely looking forward to a Friday where we'll see Dr. George and Mr. Manye and yourself. I think you are the ones that have confirmed already. But just a few things, I won't be long. Dr. George mentioned the pensions-backed loans, which I really wanted to emphasize that we do, SOC gives to people even if they are not KZN based. So those one for parliamentarians, for everyone that wants that loan, they can get those loans. And I must say that I really appreciate the support that we have got from everyone and from Parliament, and also the commitment of the Act, which is very important, the amendment of the Act from Mr. Manye, I nearly said Dr. Manye, and also to confirm that on the loans, we do have, I know Dr. Abrams asked if we do have the loans that are supporting SMMEs, we do have under IDFC from 2% to 7%, and it's a special loans that are given by our HR group, because we are a group. I just also want to emphasize so that people understand it. Itala Development Finance Corporation and Itala SOC, which is the banking arm, is 100% owned by Itala Development Finance Corporation. Itala Development Finance Corporation is the second biggest property owner in KZN. It's an SOE that is the Schedule 3D that has never ever been bailed out. Even our own KZN government don't give us money. Then to think, just the fallacy of saying Itala might not be liquid, whilst it's got such a big backup, it's really something that is neither here nor there. Itala will always have money because it is a subsidiary of a very good, I must say good SOE that is running very well. And then I think the other thing I wanted to mention, Chair, a very good comprehensive presentation that has been made by Dr. Vilakazi. I think the pages that I didn't go through, Treasury has touched on them, but I would really, really appreciate and ask the indulgence of the members to go through those pages, because there Dr. Vilakazi is stating, dates on what happened this date, where they met, how they were engaging robustly and almost every month with the Prudential Authority. And after they've said this one thing, something happened, which led to some of the things going to court. But I think those pages are very, very important, very comprehensive, gives the whole list of what has happened. And you would then appreciate how much efforts from our side as Itala we've asked. On the guarantee, we have given SOC the irrevocable letter of credit, which was requested by Treasury of 350 million by Prudential Authority. And then Prudential Authority came back again and requested another guarantee for 2 billion, which was maybe an amount that was too much, but it was not in line with all the other banks. They were asking too much for Itala. We did write to National Treasury, and then they just had one liner. They didn't want to get themselves involved, and they just said, because we're in court, they just gave us one letter, one line that we're in court, then they're not going to help us with that guarantee. So with the guarantee that was requested before, we have been able to give all those guarantees. I just wanted to emphasize that part, that we are a very well-run institution in KZN. And lastly, we are the only bank that still have about 38 branches in rural areas. I'm hoping when the team comes, we'll be able to go and visit those branches, because you would see that most of the banks have closed their branches in rural areas. They only have ATMs. But as Itala SOC, we do have those branches. So we are a very solid bank and a very big brand in KZN. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks. I think we're done. Everybody has spoken. We have to round up so that we allow members to take passes to the House. Thanks very much, honorable members and National Treasury and Itala leadership from the MEC, who is a shareholder. Honorable Mine, I see your hand before we close.
Yeah. No, thank you, Chair. No, you will make your round of remark. I just forgot to mention one point, Chairperson, just to say that I think National Treasury must remember that apartheid was also lawful. So this notion that things have been done lawfully does not move us, because even apartheid was lawful. So I just wanted to leave them with that thought. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thanks very much, Honorable Manya. And thanks for the Itala leadership to have availed themselves, starting from the MEC, though he arrived a bit later, as he has a commitment with the Spaza Shop program. We were very worried before this meeting that it was like the bank was going to collapse anytime with what we were getting from the public domain. But after this meeting, as Parliament, we are quite assured that Itala is on the right course. What has to be addressed is that as we speak, Itala does not have a banking license. As we speak, Itala does not have an exemption notice. And you can't allow that in a constitutional democracy, because there's going to be a legal challenge tomorrow. And Itala will have no leg to stand on. Somebody is even going to challenge as to who are you? Where do you derive your existence from? We know your history, but now who are you? So, Treasury, we are treading on a very thin ice. And here we talk about the lives of people. We can't have an institution like this without an exemption notice, nor a banking license. So who are they? Because they are not just an ordinary SOE like other SOEs. They have been established for a particular purpose. So, and they are raising the issue of the Financial Matters Amendment Act, number 18 of 2019. I heard somebody saying that at that time, those who were in the committee have agreed or have raised the issue that Itala should be exempted. Alan, Dr. Slope, Antonio, and Wushle and others, you have been in this committee for a long time. You are institutional memory. Can you look for those records? They should be there in the records of this committee. So what is agreed, according to me, is that the court route is not going to resolve this problem. And in more often than not, we always blame the courts that they overreach, they get into the governance space. But it is us who allow the courts to get into the governance space, because if we take the matter to them, what must they do? Because they have to adjudicate and arrive at a particular determination. This is the matter that should have been resolved between National Treasury and Prudential Authority. Why I'm saying so? Itala is not a commercial, independent, private-owned bank. Itala is wholly owned by the state. It's a state bank. So why should politicians and or administrators in government run away from resolving a problem? Because now, tomorrow, we are going to have a budget tabling. Amongst other issues that is going to be high up there is the issue of the liquidity of SOEs. Here you have got an SOE which says we don't want any money. We are not in a rescue situation. We can do with what we have. So Itala is -1 problem. And if we don't intervene, 3 or 5 months down the line, Itala is going to have serious issues. Then we'll come to Parliament running with a special bill to bail out Itala, because we are not doing certain things now. I don't think it's right. There's something not right. Because Treasury can't write one letter, a letter with one line, and say the matter is before the courts. when you are dealing with a financial institution which is wholly owned by government. Is that how you are going to deal with all the SOEs? Otherwise, SOEs are taken to court every day. I was reading somewhere in the newspaper when I was coming down from Gauteng last night that Transnet is going to pay so much millions because it awarded a tender to somebody who did not qualify. I say, yeah. Then when we get a briefing, we'll be told that the Transnet needs a bailout. Then here is a tender irregularity. Is that how people do things? I don't think it's right for government departments to fold their arms and say, no, we can't intervene. We leave it like that. We understand the principle or the principle of sub judice, but it can't be that we allow government institutions to collapse under our watch. So as it has been agreed, the Standing Committee is going to write a letter to the Minister of Finance that we have engaged Itala, and here are the challenges. Even its existence is a challenge. What is Itala's legal standing as we speak? Because it doesn't have a notice, exemption notice, nor a license. And what are you doing to make sure that Itala is in good standing? Because you can't leave the matter to the board. This is a state-owned entity. So we'll write a letter to the minister to request him to intervene in this regard. We can't always be told about the independence of the bank, prudential authority out there. We respect it. We know it. We're from school. We have studied constitutional democracy. But prudential authority does not operate outside the space where people are. It's run by people. It's run by rules. It even accounts here. And if it needs be, we'll have to call them at some stage to talk about this issue and put aside the court problem and get this problem resolved. Secretariat, we should write also another letter to the MEC Duma and his board that before Parliament rises, we want to see the turnaround strategy. There are a number of challenges that have been raised in the presentation and raised by honorable members regarding the functionality of Itala. The question is, do you have a turnaround strategy? If you have, can you please send it to us? To us, I mean all of us as members of this committee. And then a file, I mean a copy, will have to go to Parliament. We'll request you to do so as of today or the latest tomorrow. That letter will be following you. We've got a very serious interest in the financial institutions. As honorable members have said here, we have seen financial institutions collapsing, whether it's Sambo, there were challenges with African Bank, VBS has completely died. Now Itala has got some challenges. So we can't, during our tenure, keep quiet, because this is going to follow us. And people will say, what did you do when you were members of Parliament? We never even raised a finger to salvage Itala, which is the bank that services the downtrodden, the poor masses out there. As I say, over the weekend, I was in KwaZulu-Natal. I went to Greytown, areas of Umsinga, deep Umsinga there on the mountains, where there are far away even from the road, I mean, formal roads and other facilities. Our people are still suffering there. And that's where a bank like Itala should extend the services to, because even if they get grants, then they end up spending lots of money traveling to Tukela Ferry to go and withdraw from Itala ATMs there. So thanks very much, honorable members. And as we have agreed, those who are ready, on Friday, Manya, are you coming so that we can plan properly?
Oh, definitely, Chair. EFF does not make empty threats. I'll be there.
Well, don't want that. Just say empty promise. Don't speak in military language. Yeah. We're in a parliamentary platform. So
following their leader.
Noxil,
Khalil.
Noxil.
Chair, apologies.
Uzoba khona ngithi ngo-Friday.
Sure, Chair, I will try to do that. What time are we talking, Chair?
No, I will make proper arrangement. Did I hear somebody saying Dr. Georges also confirmed? So that
No, Chair, I'm not available on Friday, unfortunately.
okay. So those who will be available will make a proper arrangement so that we don't
Yeah.
that
Maybe afternoon on Friday, if it is possible, Chair, and I'll be able to make it. Sorry, Chair.
can you please leave early, man? Let me talk with you offline. But let's agree that Friday will be in Durban and we'll be going to Itala offices and probably go to Anton Lembede branch and see what's happening, because it looks like it's the biggest branch and with lots of activities. Thanks very much, the board of Itala and the executive and all the support staff, honorable members, the support team of SCOF, media, and everybody who's in attendance. The meeting is adjourned until we meet again tomorrow at budget close-up session. Thanks very much.
Long live the chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it.
Long live Mzwai.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Mani.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, colleagues.
I want to Mr. Mani.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
And we'll see you on Friday.
Sure, Chair. I'm looking forward to that Friday. I'm going to clear everything. Thank you very much, Chair. Bye. Thank you, members.
Recording stopped.